All right, now we'll talk about us dolphins. We are always searching for ourselves. This might be because they don't already know who they are, and as a result, they don't know what their skill sets are. This causes insecurity with the dolphin, and it often results in a failure to get out of the stands and into the game syndrome, or getting swallowed up by unhealthy people who dangle the promise of greater meaning and purpose. That's called, by the way, a cult. Okay? I would say as a more advanced senior dolphin, I mean, to advance in age and life stage, I feel like I don't have the question about who I am. So you don't get stuck in that forever, okay? But then it's like, how do I harness who I know myself to be with the ideals, right, that God has given me? And I'm the first one to smoke out cult leaders. Right? It's just like, yeah, I understand the idealism, but I also get the whole power trip, and I'm not excited about that. All right, so let's look on our sheets on the dolphin page to unpack this a little bit more. So this is on page 6. So you look at the two open bubbles here on the upper half of the page. The lesser of two evils is that insecurity will cause inaction when for a dolphin to do anything puts his or her reputation on the line. A dolphin is the one most likely to say that she wants to start but doesn't put any effort because she realizes how much work is involved. Rather than fail trying, she might as well quit. A perfectly competent dolphin will end up being a sideline spectator or bench warmer, even though he or she has the skill set to be in the starting lineup. So you can tell that was written by a son of a football coach.
But I also added she for all you women.
Yes, yeah.
Okay?
Starting lineup.
I take in women's studies, okay?
Understudy versus actually cast member, yeah. So I don't know, who identifies as a dolphin besides me? Okay, so do you feel that sometimes you're kind of you feel like, man, this is gonna be a lot of work, and I'm not sure I can pull it off. So it's just better not to do it, right? Yeah, we'll wait on. Let's play some more. And even worse possible problem for a dolphin who feels insecure is to gain security through an organization that's misguided, such as a cult or a gang or drug addicts or perhaps even just a group of... Now, explain emo. I know Elmo.
I don't really know what emo is, but I imagine to be the people who comb the hair to the side with one eye covered, and they wear like makeup, guy liner, and like, yeah, goth, or in that realm.
Michael, you're talking about your husband. Yeah. Okay, so these are very dramatic people. Now, why would a dolphin and their insecurity get them to line up with that kind of tribe?
Dolphins are most likely to be depressed and then to be involved with people who are accepting. They feel comfortable with that, and they feel like they're not that plastic bag in the wind, as Katy Perry might say. They're like, yeah. Didn't she sing that right in one of her songs? Because when I hear that song, you know what? Do you guys know what I think of that story with Kevin Spacey? With that love, wait, what is that? Do you guys know what? American Beauty. Have you guys seen American Beauty? So as soon as she sang the plastic bag, American Beauty. That was the first thing I thought of. But that's why I imagined the NF to be a plastic bag, low-level NF. You know, where am I? Who am I? Except me.
Hey.
yeah. But we'll talk about the high-level NFs in a sec.
So I think the connection here with this emo thing is like, if there's this group of people that are just kind of drifting to the plastic bag, then if you're a dolphin that you have this kind of, you're not sure who you are and what you have to contribute, then it's easy for you to just join that kind of group that's just kind of drifting. At the same time, if you join a cult, the cult isn't drifting. The cult is very driven, right? And they're saying we're not like those drifters or those other, posers. We're really serious, blah, blah, blah.
So in talking to my friend, we're talking about the higher level dolphin. So they may not be insecure. They may feel self-righteous. They may feel like the divine right of the kings. I'm tapped into the gods. not just God, but gods. I'm tapped into gods. And I know you follow me because I'm special. And then that could be a reason why.
But this is not a cult yet.
Yeah. So imagine having a NF Dolphin speaker who's saying, who's talking about like, I'm a divine person. I have special intuitive powers, or I could speak directly to God. If that leader's intuitive, NF, then he would bring in a lower NF, which is a plastic bag flying in the wind, because, I can relate to this person. That's another reason why.
I mean, some of us remember back in the 80s when the Church of the Great Shepherd started in Alhambra. And Dave Pyle was part of that, Dennis and Cindy Chow. And it was started by a ministry couple from the church on Atlantic Boulevard that's white in Monterey Park. But he was an associate pastor on staff. But they felt they were getting more charismatic. God was talking to them directly. So they created more of a New Testament church. They're saying we're going to be like Acts. We're going to hold everything in common. And a lot of Fuller students that were Asian American that I knew, who were I think maybe the plastic bags, they got all caught up in it and ended up where the wife of the founding pastor, who I think was an undiagnosed narcissistic schizophrenic, right? So she was hearing voices and she attributed it to God. And so one day she announced, and this is when Dennis and Cindy Chow and all the married, like more mature adults left, it says, from now on, everything that I say is God talking directly to you, okay? So all the more mature people left, and then the young adult, idealistic seminary students and college students, well, what if she's right? And I want to believe that God can speak directly through, right? So they all stayed and ended up, they were abusing children. It was terrible, 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 right? But to me, it's like slow cooking a frog. So it wasn't that way at the outset, but it got to the place where this person was all powerful and the people were so kind of destroyed in their own self-esteem that they had no voice to push back, okay? So that's why this is not a cult.
So there's a question here that says, why isn't it enough for a dolphin to know
what their problems
are? Let's say depression or insecure. I mean, if they were to talk to a normal owl, not an owl who's studies psychology, but they just say, it makes no sense what you're doing, so don't do it. And they'll be like, they won't say anything bad to that owl. A dolphin won't say, you don't know what you're talking about, but they'll go, okay, yeah, you're right, and then leave and be their own depressed self back in the corner in their cave. But how do you tell a person not to be depressed? They just don't do it. I mean, you have to encourage them to do what they love. You have to encourage them to get out in the world and be a productive citizen in society, which is why when we have stories, a lot of times we have all epic hero stories, they come from a baby that's born from an unknown source. I mean, I don't know if you heard the heroes of 1,000 faces, but they're born from an unknown source. They're very weak and insecure, and then they're called to go destroy the evil bad guy. Take, for example, Luke Skywalker. But in every sort of NF Dolphin story arc like that, they have a person coaching them along because that person sees in them a power that they have that they don't know. So, and a lot has to do with this because they don't have ego. The dolphin is less likely to have ego from the outset, from the beginning at least. So in Star Wars, who was the mentor? Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? And then in Lord of the Rings, we got Frodo. What was his mentor? Gandalf, right? And so in hero stories where there is an NF story arc, I don't know why it's the most interesting story arc, but it is. They have someone in the very beginning who helps them say, you might not be ready now, but when the time comes for you to defeat Darth Vader, you will be ready, and I see that in you. And so I think dolphins are best fit with a mentor at the very beginning of their stages. With that said, Ken was asking me, do other types, would they help having a mentor as well? I believe an owl would be a better mentor for a dolphin and vice versa. A beaver would be a better mentor for a fox and vice versa. I told my friend this, who's also an ENFP dolphin, like Ken. He says, no, a self-actualized dolphin would be better for a dolphin, and a self-actualized owl would be better for an owl, and so on, so on. I'm like, that's so idealistic. You're saying, oh, that person will actually have time to, like the person would find the right dolphin to dolphin match who went through the same struggle. It's easier to get someone who has easy insight to them, someone who's different than them. So I guess the conclusion from that is, it depends on how idealistic you are. I wasn't idealist, so I just thought it'd be better for someone of a different type to be able to point out your flaws and your weaknesses.
Yeah, and I think I was telling Ryan, this has implication for mate selection too. Because if you marry the same totem that you are, then you have the same blind spots. But if you marry someone so opposite from you that they just don't get you and you don't get them, that's also not good. So that's why owl and dolphin are both N's. So they get the idealism, and beaver and fox are both S's. So they're more concrete, right? So those of us who've already made choices without this knowledge, yeah, we're having prayer ministry afterwards. We're going to pray for the miracle of transformed temperament.
You know what's interesting at church? At church, Ken, what are the two, or everyone, what are the two types that are most likely to go to church? Beavers and dolphins, right?
Yeah.
But beavers go well with who? So all you ladies who are beavers,
Slim pickings here.
all you ladies who are beavers, you need to go clubbing. Find your mate there, okay? That's where you need to go. Work on your dance moves, okay?
Yeah.
Work on your dance moves.
Dance fever.
Yeah.
Well, that's why they were saying even for, to plan, like we're talking about planning a young adult ministry beyond like quarter life. And they're like, if you just have beavers doing it, it's like the foxes ain't going to show up. Right? You need to have someone who understands what fun looks like, right? But at the same time, it's sustainable. I like what you say here that of the four totems, the beavers have the hardest time figuring out how to feel secure, because the beaver is content by working hard. A fox is content by having an adventure, and an owl by exploring its mind. But the dolphin's always asking themselves who they are in every situation for as long as they live. Okay? So if you're a dolphin like me, it's like that can be kind of destabilizing. If you're an actor, I think that's really interesting, because then you go, like, who am I today? Who am I in this role? Yeah, I'm not stuck. So it just goes with being a dolphin. Okay, let's finish up here with the owl. Enamored of the abstract part of faith. They approach religion like a normal academic course, like chemistry or physics, and this is going to trip up an owl. The problem with this is that owls don't understand that part of every person's spiritual journey requires that you build strong relationships with people around you. So I would think a lot of seminary professors are owls, and so it's just like enamored with theology and ethics, all this kind of stuff. But the downside of an owl is they don't necessarily see the need to form relationships. Right. Okay, and one of the most impactful former professors of mine, he was at Fuller for 30 years, and he was always denied tenure. Okay, 30 years and you don't have tenure. And part of it was because he was a gadfly in the face of all the other the faculty, because he pastored a church all those 30 years. He never stopped pastoring a church. And so he always challenged the faculty, and he says, you can't do theology outside the context of ministry, right? And that's what you hear us say. It's like, we want a theology that is informed by ministry and a ministry that is informed by theology. And that's directly from this guy, Ray Anderson. And they would go, no, we can just have this pure study of this subject. And then, he would tell us, one time he goes, so one of my colleagues comes up to me, and they've been teaching, here for like 25 years. And they said, hey, I need your advice. My divorced niece recently came to me, and she found someone she wants to actually marry, and I'm not sure what I should do, because it's like divorce and remarriage. And then Dr. Aaron's like, this is the first time you've actually had a real case of having to figure out what to do tomorrow. It's like you've been teaching students for 25 years about this, but you've never actually had to wrestle with it, right? And it's like, so they were annoyed, right? I mean, because it's like, hey, you're messing with what we understand. He goes, a huge part of what we understand is when you try to live it out, okay? Right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
That speaks to me.
Yeah. Okay, so go ahead, take them on this is the page 8 for the owls. Why is it not enough for an owl just to know what their problem is going to be so that they can avoid the problems in the future?
Right. Because one of the most complex problems, or the most complex problems we ever have in life is dealing with other people. But the most important thing to a owl is not necessarily people, it's knowledge. And this one really speaks to me because, I mean, this is just imagine me studying this for 15 years and just talking to my own group of friends about this theory, and people taking me down from the ivory towers to like share what I know, and then all of a sudden I teach everything that I know in like 80 minutes. Bam, there it is, slide, bam, bam, bam. People are like, what the heck are you talking about? It's because I didn't have enough experience working with the average person to know how to speak to the average person. And so I've done a lot of these lessons just to know how to integrate myself. Also, speaking in this type of format is difficult because I was used to just speaking from my head. And whether there's one person in front of me or 100 people in front of me, it didn't make a difference because I'm just thinking about what I'm going to say in the head. Speaking in this, how I'm doing now, where I'm asking more questions and giving more examples, it took a lot more energy, especially for an introverted owl, because they're not used to being around so much people and they're used to not having to think on their feet. So after one of the classes, I went home and I slept for 4 hours. I'm so drained. And Ken's like, ha ha, owl.
Wake up!
Emoticon. I'm like, thanks for your sympathy, Ken. So that gives you an example how we are so obsessed with knowledge that we miss the most critical aspect of knowledge. It's sharing the knowledge. Sharing the knowledge is so important. One thing that's kind of cool, we live in the information age, and it's really easy to share knowledge. So that really helps out owls a lot. All you owls in here who are good at something or know something that other people don't know, you could email a whole document of all your thoughts to someone, and you could talk about it. I mean, I think that's pretty powerful. For instance, that's different from a dolphin. Dolphin's natural strength is dealing with people, diplomacy. So Ken easily show me how to be diplomatic. He could show me, but not very easily. So because it's not something you could just email over. It's something where it's tested. Just like a beaver is a logistical organization. If you give me something, organize something, I would have a hard time organizing it if I had no framework in which to begin with. Whereas beavers naturally, okay, this goes here, this is what needs to be done. For instance, when you came here, what were you irritated by, Ken?
Yeah,
when you
the
came here
logistics
today?
weren't set up.
No, what did you say about?
So. Okay, now you're gonna hear the annoyed. Okay. So we bought this new projector, and it makes sense to me that whatever's in the projector bag is everything you need to use it. Is that a huge thing to ask? No? Okay. So I already borrowed this once when we had a retired Asian American it was a little gathering of Asian American pastors over the San Gabriel Hilton, so it wasn't far. So I go, hey, I need to check out the computer, the projector, because I'm going to be doing a slideshow. Okay, so I get there, set it up, and there's no cord to connect the projector to your computer. I have the little Apple dongle, but I need this cord, right? And so fortunately, the church isn't that far. And so I asked the office, I go, why is this projector in a bag that has a power cord, but it doesn't have the cord you need to actually plug in a computer? It's like, oh, well, Shirley has one in her office, and they use it on Sunday mornings, either in here or over there, right? And so I go, this entire church has one cord. Yeah. Some of you with the role of giving need to give more. Yeah. So I said, can we make sure that in the future there is always the cord in the bag so that whoever is going to use the projector has exactly what they need, right? And so the cord they put in the bag for a while was the one that said children's ministry on it that Shirley uses. Okay? So this morning I showed up and it's like, I told the logistics person that every time we do this class, we're going to need a projector, we're going to need the screen. And I showed up here and neither one of those things is here, right? And it's like, so I'm the make it so person. I want to be Jean-Luc Picard, right? So I have to say make it so once, and then it's repeated. It's a pattern. So anyway, we were scrambling, looking all over the campus. Where's this stuff? And when we finally got the projector, there was no connector cord in the bag. So I was annoyed. Okay? Because it's like, why is it? And so then I sent our intern, go find me a cord, right? And so he went into Shirley's office, and he actually found, I think, the cord they planned to put in the bag that was still in the little clamshell case that you buy at Best Buy or something like that. And it was sitting there, it was like, it didn't make the journey into the pocket in the bag. Right? So starting from now on, this cord is going in that bag.
Okay. This is a really long, convoluted way of saying ends are not very good at logistical skills.
I just say that.
Who do you think's here earlier? Ken or Jonathan? Jonathan's always here. Why? Because he's like, things need to be set up. Ken's like, things will be set up. So that's the problems N have. He's like, why isn't this set up? Why do I have to set it up? I'm only the speaker. I have to set up the projector. So I mean,
I'm charging extra. No, I was prepared to set it up, but it should be here.
The point is when it comes to Beaver work, it's not very glamorous, so we overlook how important that is. But if you don't have a cord, you're not having a slideshow. I'm sorry, I don't care how much you plan. Yeah. And so logistical skills is something that they have, and
now to the credit of me, the dolphin, I was prepared to pull this off even if we didn't have a cord, because I was going to make an adjustment, right? So I have flexibility built in. I know I can accomplish my goal in many different ways.
And so wait, there's one thing we didn't cover. Why isn't it enough for Owl to know that the problem they have is working with people? It's because owls are comfortable without working with people, right? And so if you and say if they're a little higher level, you say, oh, you need to learn how to work with people. Owl will say, I know how to work with people. Look, I work with this person, this person, this person. Yeah, can you work with low-level people? They're like, ooh, why do I want to work with low-level people? So it's like, no, you have to learn how to work with everyone. Ooh, that's really painful for an owl to do, because an owl, like Ken, wants that make it so type of attitude, and they just want to share a few words and for you to understand exactly what they mean. They will, at some point, an owl, when they do everything by themselves or with few people, they may realize, looking back on their life when they're older and more mature, oh, I missed my opportunity to work with people when I actually could. I really lost out a lot in life. Most of my life was spent thinking. In my head, I was stimulated and enjoying myself, but I have nothing to show for it.
I wonder how that translates to like home relationships in your marriage, with your children. If you're an owl and you've got the perfect family all figured out in your head, and everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing, but not necessarily investing in the relationships, right? Because what you just said at the end, it sounds like the midlife crisis, in this case, dad. It's like, for the first 20 years of my family's life, I basically ran the thing. I brought home the bacon, but then now I went through midlife crisis. I realized I don't have my own kids. Hey, let's go on a family vacation. And the kids have learned how to deal without you, right? And like, we don't want to go anywhere with you. So it's one of those tragic things where one of the parents is coming back to the relationships, kind of waking up to it, and the rest of the family is like, you've never been there, so why do we want to be with you now?
Well, when it comes to family, Owl naturally knows that family is more important than anyone else. It's just the fact that when it deals with people they don't like, that's really a
I
problem.
love my family. They weren't people. Yeah.
That's
The concept of family.
So what Ken is saying is true, but what happens almost with a huge percentage of owls is like not working with people that they don't like and missing out on a lot.
Let me back up one step, and Ryan was talking a little bit about, is there a natural different place for mentors to come into each totem, right? And so, yeah, spot on. Dolphins need mentors early on because we won't even go on the journey. We need to be told and convinced and coached. And the way it goes in those great stories is like the mentor can't go on the journey with you, but they're going to give you enough that you can recall kind of their equipping. And when you're in the cave fighting the dragon, it's like all of a sudden you see the image of Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? It's that whole thing, and it's like you can do that. That's a different place, right? So if you're a dolphin, you really would benefit from having an owl mentor early in your life, early in this new chapter of your life, because you need that person to get you going where you're afraid to go, okay? For a fox, your problem is not being unsure of yourself to go on the journey. Your problem is you go off cocky, okay? And we said at the outset of this course that like Top Gun, or even that movie that probably none of the women saw, Iron Eagle. Guys, remember Iron Eagle? Right?
It's more enjoyable.
Yeah, but it's those cases where somebody is really, like this kid his dad was a pilot, he was down behind him, and he trained his son to be a good flyer, but he was underage. He wasn't in the Air Force, so he stole a jet, right? And he's going to go rescue his father. So that's the classic fox. It's like, and he's always listening to his rock music and everything. But then someone gets hurt somewhere in the journey. So he didn't need a mentor to get him to go. He just took off. And then somewhere in all these fox movies, some disaster happens. And it's usually not the fox, but it's someone that's connected and dependent on the fox that they either get killed or they really get hurt. And now the fox wants to quit the journey, right? Because they're like, I'm horrible. My recklessness caused this person so much pain or cost them their life. And that's where they need the beaver mentor, right? Who's it? Lou Gossett Jr., right? They need this other person who understands them but is not reckless like them to say, okay, so what do you learn from this? Because we still need you in the game, but you can't be the same person. So I would say if you're a fox, that significance of a mentor comes much later in your arc, okay? Now, for the owl...
Well, and I just want to say the beaver would teach the fox discipline. Discipline in sort of the way he may fly the jet to be more disciplined in flying the jet, but also disciplined in practice as well. Practice may be more important than actually game time because you may learn more in practice than actual game time, right? So they add that element of discipline.
So where would you say in the arc of that hero's journey, the mentor naturally comes in for the owl and for the beaver?
For the owl, again, owl will naturally study knowledge, just read the book, right? I cracked open this book when I was 20 years old. Please understand me too, the personality theory. I didn't start teaching real classes till 6 months ago. and it was my beaver cousin who called me out on it. I mean,
it was also your pastor.
Oh, it's my dolphin pastor who actually gave me the avenue in which to speak. Thank you, Ken. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and he's learning skills.
I would hug him, but we're in a Japanese church. So but I'm actually a massage therapist, so I hug a lot of people. If it was talking to another owl, I would probably teach them and say, oh, this is great information. It wouldn't dawn on them to share information.
Right. So I feel like this is somewhat representative of where a mentor comes in for an owl, and in this case, a dolphin mentor, because I came in, I looked at all his years of research and learning and fascination and said, it's time to birth this child. right? It's like, this is a 15-year pregnancy, okay? And at some point, it's toxic, right? It's not, it needs to come out and see the light of day. There are people who will be blessed by this child, and I will be your midwife. Right? I'm like, push it out. Like, and it's going to be messy. There's going to be chaos, but this child is going to live. Okay? So I'm just kind of saying from our experience that role would never have functioned in the beginning of his journey because he feels like he doesn't know enough, right? And so for him to say anything, it seems way premature. Even now it feels premature, right? But I'm going, trust me, it's not premature.
Well, also because since I'm coming from a knowledge standpoint, I just want to know facts. Ken has asked me questions that's never been covered before about spiritual journeys. And I'm like flipping through the book. I'm like, there's nothing on this,
It's not in the book, Brian.
How do I write something just in theory? That's really odd to do. I don't know if you guys write much, but it's like, I think this is how they would react. I'm not quite sure. And then so all I did was write what I thought. At some point, I got tired of research because there's nothing on it. And I just told people to proofread it. Like, what do you think? Is this right? What do you think? What do you think? And
I think he's been spot on, right? All right, now, so the last question is, where does the mentor come in for the Beavers?
Beavers? It's that point of time where things get a little stale. When the organization has the same people who've been there for 20 years and then like, why is there no new people here? You know, that's when you know, oh, maybe you need to change things up. Let's bring in Fox and make things a little more stimulating, fun, and let's do things a different way. This is so funny. So half of my family is Buddhist. And I go to their obon once in a while, support them, because my aunt is strong, has been going to Nishihon Ganji Church. I don't know if you guys know where Nishihon Ganji is. And I've known those people there for a long time. Like literally, I've known them over like 30 years, because I'm 35, but I know some of these people are 30. They're still going to the same church. And you go to one and they have the same food for 30 years. Not atypical, right? So I helped them. One time I was like, hey, you know what? I want to know how dongos are made. So, hey, can I help you make some dongos? Like, oh, we don't have a dongo mixer. This is our dongo mixer. Like the guy, you can't mix it with a machine because a machine will make it too smooth. You need a person to do it. So they literally...
It's an Okinawan donut.
Yeah, it's a dense donut that if you mix it up too much, it'll be thin. So they literally didn't have a backup person.
To the guy.
To the guy! I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
That's job security right there.
So this organization, this particular club in the church, I don't know why, but they had older people, and the guy who did it was early 60s, which is not too young, and it's hard to do 200 batches of dongos, like hand mixing it. And like the ladies couldn't do it because they're in their early 60s, and they couldn't mix it either. So I'm like, well, let me help you out. So we were doing it, my cousin, we were mixing dongos, and we put out the most dongos that had ever been put out on a certain day, and they all sold. But I'm like, hey, why don't you get some raspberry like dipping sauces and cream sauces and chocolate sauces and see what happens? Like, oh, we've never done that before. Can we do that? Can we add, I don't know, it really changes the flavor up. I'm like, well, I go to Denny's, and Denny's has these little round donuts, and I dip them in these sauces, and they taste good, and I know Grand Lux Cafe does that, so I figure it's good. And so the next day they did that. Oh, this is so wonderful. We're getting such great feedback. I mean, this is something that they look back to see, should I do it? No, I shouldn't do it because it's never been done before. And when I tell them no, the kids will like it if you add chocolate dipping sauces. They thought that was like the
parents will like it.
They thought that was the most revolutionary thing, right? But I was only with them for, I don't know, 3 hours that day. And it's like little insights a fox, or I'm not a fox, but a fox could bring, or anyone who is a utilitarian who thinks outside the box actually, would bring little things up that could dramatically change a situation.
All right, so do you understand that mentors, the significance of a mentor actually happens in different places? And so even with our mentoring ministry that we have here right now, I'm kind of challenging Pastor Jason to kind of think through the totem matches, and also, you know, how receptive is each totem going to be to a mentor at certain points? You know, if we're all kind of assuming people are at the same point, they're not. But anyway, I think that's interesting.